We are here back in the studio, Remco Real Talk. Jay Falconio, your host, here with one of my good friends, Matt Scannapieco.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being on. So Matt and I met a couple years ago in the networking scene, and the one thing that I want to touch on the most in the beginning is just that the follow-up, the art of the follow-up. For how many golf outings we never made it to the links, but just the text, hey Jay, are you available? What's going on with your business, vice versa. So for those listening, Matt has a very successful family-run real estate brokerage, and he has an awesome touch, the way that he does his transactions and the way that he does his social media marketing. So that's my quick intro for you,
Cool.
sir.
Yeah, thank you. We will make it out on the golf course this year.
Yes.
I can promise that.
Yeah. And I got new clubs and I'm ready to go. However, they don't make me any better. So
I haven't got new clubs because I'm afraid of that. Spending money in the clubs and not make me any better at golf.
Do you enjoy the process of like actually being out there and getting to know people, or are you somebody who would rather exchange business conversation over a cup of coffee or a bite to eat?
I would say probably a bite to eat and coffee.
Yeah.
When I'm playing golf, I'm kind of locked in some capacity.
Oh,
Even if
no.
I'm not taking it really seriously, it's hard to not focus on the golf.
I know what you mean.
So I find myself like when I come home, my wife's like, what were you talking about the whole time? Like, we were playing golf. We were talking a little bit here and there, but we were focused on golfing. So I kind of pay attention more to the golf than anything else. And have conversations in between. And
I think I get the vibe too. Like if your game's not good, then you're in your own head.
Yeah.
And you're shut
more
down.
of like the competitive sports nature of it. Like it's just like tying that into the sports. It's just, I can't help it. So I would say I'd rather not be focused on playing a sport while talking business, if preferred. Now it's nice to get out with people, but it's more of the social, I think, and the networking than the business side of things. So at least for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are those who can really thrive out there, and it just seems like nothing phases them, and they're playing awesome, and they're shaking hands, they're meeting people, they're closing deals. But it's like, I feel like that's like in the movies.
Yes.
You can do it really well, but I think I enjoy over a bite to eat.
Yeah.
Some time. Using food as like that background and just kind of breaking bread and chatting over food is my go-to as well. So
I would agree.
So what's been new? We haven't kind of sat down in a bit. What's new with the firm?
So we are, we're trying to really take over a little bit of Lower Bucks County. Okay. We're continuing to grow. Last year, I did $22 million in transaction volume myself.
Nice.
And we wanted to kind of just continue to develop the team in the brokerage. So we're ramping things up. We just renovated or revamped our website, and we're starting to do a little bit more digital marketing to put a presence on our family brokerage. And in doing so, we have 3 agents on the team now. So it's myself and 3 other agents, and my broker is my dad. So the 5 of us collectively just kind of continue to garner a bigger footprint in the location. So right now we have a couple really cool listings in Holland that are all a couple minutes away from a couple minutes a walk from my house. I can walk to all 3 of these listings we have. One went under contract in just a couple days, over asking price, multiple offers. So the market's still hot, which certainly helps, but we're really elevating our marketing and our presentation of properties so that we can just continue to grow the footprint.
That's incredible.
That's really the goal. We want to be the go-to listing office in that area. And there's obviously a lot of players, but we believe we do things the best, and we have the top-notch quality service that people look for when it comes to buying or selling. And a lot of agents are shy about working with buyers. I mean, naturally with my age, we have a lot of first-time home buyers. We have a lot of buyers we're working with, and we look at them as clients for life. We treat all of our clients like family. So it's good to have those buyers, because at some point they become sellers. Absolutely. And we're not shy about that. So we work with all avenues of really the business. Obviously we like our sellers too, but we don't shy away from those buyers, and we know how to help people. And having just bought another house myself 8 months ago,
congrats.
I've been in the process. So I know what it's like firsthand, which certainly helps. And
well, that must be everything too, right? If you're walking to the listing, you could speak about the neighborhood, you could speak about the schools, you can use that firsthand experience, not to mention, you're born and raised in the area.
Yes.
So you could speak, what it was like growing up as a kid.
Yes.
And you can put yourself in those shoes of not only the parents, but the children as well.
Absolutely. And I got a 4-month-old now. Yeah. So that's a new development. So having relating to that, I do understand, especially like Council Rock. Like if you talk about any location, Council Rock, Newtown, Richboro, Holland, Churchville, I mean, I do know it like the back of my hand. I've been there for really almost 30 years at this point in time, where I could go anywhere in those locations and recite information just from experience.
That's huge.
I can go into other areas, and I do work a larger footprint than that. It just makes me have to work a little bit harder smarter and get a little bit more of an understanding to help the client out, whether it be on the sell side or the buy side, to make sure that they're comfortable. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that every client we work with, not only it's an easy process, but they're comfortable and understanding. We don't leave anything as far as any stone unturned when it comes to giving information. We want them to have a clear picture on what they're trying to accomplish.
I'm sure they can tell too about like the tone in your voice and the intonation that you know your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that's like the biggest, misconception, or something that it took me so long to realize that. I'm like, well, you're a realtor, but like, why don't you focus on the shore and the mountains and in the burbs?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm just not too sure about those markets. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And it's hard. And I just got my New Jersey license almost 2 years ago at this point in time. And I've done a couple deals here and there, but I don't know that area well. And I've talked to my own broker and other agents, and like, oh, why didn't you do more in New Jersey, down the shore, or whatever the case is? And it's like, I have to learn that before I can talk it. I have to do it before I was going to say, and
how do you learn it? By doing.
Yep.
So by kind of just cutting your teeth on, for what it's worth, trial and error clients.
Yes.
Right. And hey, this went well, this didn't go. And you're an adaptable guy. I get that, but you have to have those like research and development clients.
Yes. And I've done that too in different capacities. Like, I mean, my business started, I want to say, pretty much exclusively in Philadelphia, although I was from Bucks County. I was down living in Philadelphia, and our whole portfolio that we own is in Philadelphia. So I was doing the property management, doing the leasing, doing rental showings. And that's how I started. I was showing and selling properties that were $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in North Philadelphia. Yeah. Like they were not exciting. They weren't great things to market. And now we have multiple listings that are $1 million, $2.5 million. And you don't start from the top.
That's
true.
You
have to go through the grind. And those $50,000 deals gave me valuable experiences. Even before that, when I was doing the leasing, those are the same kind of interactions you're having with buyers and sellers, but they're just a different context. They're looking to rent properties. So it makes it easier when you come around to talking about buyers and talking about sellers, because they're still people.
How many people see the full life cycle of the real estate kind of transaction, or something from leasing to, leasing, renting in the city, and then going into that, like maybe first time home buyer and then their forever home? Because I feel like you've seen the whole process.
Yeah. And everyone's a little different. I mean, I've had people, I use one example that comes to the top of my head. They change, and it shifts even in their own process. The client I'm thinking of, they were looking for center city condos, 1 bedrooms in large apartment or condo complexes. And from there, we were looking at kind of value. And then they're like, do I really want this? Can I get more space for the same dollar? And they ended up with something completely different, which was a new construction or newer construction townhouse in Manioc, which was 3 or 4 stories, and it was a completely different animal, but they saw the value in that and they understood what the market is, and they jumped into that. Then from there, normally you take a middle step of, okay, you're going to upgrade your house. Maybe you go out of the suburbs, or maybe you buy something else in the city. They went from first home to dream home. So they took a big step from this, in a very nice townhouse in Manioc, to around $1 million property in the suburbs. And that's an anomaly. Normally you take a couple intervals to get to okay, I buy my first house. Okay, then I make an upgrade to the second house, and then maybe upgrade to the forever home. And it depends on the person. I mean, some people have kids really early. Some people don't have kids at all. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but it is cool to see, especially being in the business now over 10 years, where I've had those conversations with the buyers that bought properties as their first home, and now they're taking that second step or third step where it's recurring. Or another one, that the listing I have coming up, this is one of my favorite things, is I was able to sell houses to the entire family. I started with the oldest, and then a kid my age, one of my good friends, played baseball with growing up, sold them a house in Philadelphia, and then their younger sister in Langhorne, and now I'm putting their parents' house up for sale. So I've literally done that, every single one.
I think about that. Cool. I guess I have there's maybe 2 or 3 in the family that we've used, but yeah, people feel comfortable with with what their family has had good experiences with. So to flip the script, you brought up I get that from the client's perspective. People they make more money, they have kids, their life expands, so then their real estate dreams and aspirations change. But how many realtors do you know don't make the switch from doing leasing and rents to the single family homes or to the forever homes? Like, are some people comfortable doing what they're doing and that's all they do?
Yeah, there's people out there that do that. I think that's a natural progression. I think if you look at just like kind of the big audience of agents, if you look at a lot of people where they start out, they start in a city, it's hustle bustle, and you're having more volume just from the density of properties. So you're doing more transactions, you're getting your feet wet, and I think at the end of the day, a lot of people look at the suburbs in any area, but especially the Philadelphia suburbs, as people with money, and
Yeah,
there's more money in the suburbs than there is in the city. That's not a perfect rule, but it's a general
that's true. Yeah.
availability of what's there. So you might want to target that. But there's people I can think of off the top of my head that I've dealt with over the years where they just do leasing and they do property management, and they've done that and they have a crazy amount of volume of just that. And it's their niche and they like it.
Hmm.
And then there's people, I use myself as an example. That's how I started, but that's not where I want to spend my time today. It's just not where I want to be. So I still have a lot of connections to Philadelphia, but my main focus is that lower Bucks County area where I live. And I think where you live makes it a little bit easier to target around that location.
Hmm.
But it's something that the greatest part about real estate is you can figure out so many different ways to find your niche.
Hmm.
There's so many out there that you could be a commercial expert, you could be a residential expert, you could do just leasing, you could do trailer parks, you could do boat storage, you could do anything under the sun when it
Hmm.
comes to the need of housing and real estate, because it's around us everywhere. So you have all these different avenues, and sometimes it takes a little bit of experience going in all the different categories before you feel what you're comfortable with. And
Sure.
I use myself as an example again, in that growing up watching my dad's business, it's very different than the business I carry out and I run. He's my broker and he's my mentor, but his business is not the same as mine. He's an investor by trade and a
Mm.
broker by title. So he's a long-term investor, and he has built a great portfolio from an equity perspective. Now
Hmm.
I have ambitions to do that in my light as well, along the way and in the future. But my business is really representing clients. It's buying and selling properties. It's
Got it.
not looking for just purely investments. So we've shifted, and I've kind of carved my own path, in that I didn't have the support that my dad. I didn't have the support in this line of business. I had to kind of forge my own path. So one of the things that I like to bring to agents, not only people on my team, but if we're talking about bringing on new agents, is that I made it easier for them. I have all these tools to market now,
Sure.
because we have the $1 million listings, and
Yeah.
we have the volume of $22 million that I did last year. I mean, there's very
You
few
have
agents
playbooks, you
out
have
there. Yeah,
SOPs,
we've
almost
gone
like
we've
any
gone
business.
through it and really written it out, so that it makes it a lot more comfortable and easier, so that you don't have to learn from scratch. I can tell you from doing it, it's a lot harder that way,
Yeah.
but it's also gratifying at the same time, because you did, like, I'm stubborn in that, right? And
Yeah. No, I
I
get
wanted
that.
to get it my way and do it the
I
right
get
way.
that. And good for you for just not like, I mean, what worked for your father. I mean, also being able to kind of go off of the family legacy and that playbook. But for you saying, hey, Pops, I see what you did. I see your play. I see how you did it, but I'm going to take this route and see how this goes. I mean, that has a lot of, hats off to that. I mean, you're talking, why New Jersey? I mean, that's something your father probably never would have really wanted to do.
Yeah, he actually owned a property in Jersey, but never really practiced real estate there. Didn't Never got a license. And my thought personally, it was more personal ties. So the
Sure.
reason why I got the New Jersey license, I had a boat down in Forked River, New Jersey, and I was spending a lot of the time in the summer down there. So I'm like, all right, if I'm going to be down there, I
Good
could try
point.
to work and do stuff around there. And I did a couple deals in that area, and then I sold the boat, and I'm not over there as much. So now
Yeah,
it's
I got
more
it.
proximity to Jersey is Hamilton, Ewing, Trenton kind of
Yeah.
area,
This
close to
backyard.
my area. And it's a lot of people moving from New Jersey right to Philadelphia or
It's,
right to Pennsylvania. So it's easy
yeah.
to grab that same business because they're not far away. I
I
mean,
couldn't
20
agree
minutes
with
away.
you more. I mean, right before we hopped on and we started recording, I said, we live in an area, tri-state area, where you can get over 6 different types of bridges and you're in different states.
Yep.
And there's like this, I meet so many people who are in Jersey and they're just like, they look at Philly as like the dark side of the moon. They're like, I'm not going to Philly.
Hmm.
Like, well, there's a lot of money in Philly and
Yeah.
then there's a lot of money over, in the burbs of Philly.
The,
So good for you. I mean,
yeah, the
I,
biggest thing about that, to make a point,
yeah,
is the property taxes. That's
yeah.
one of the
Okay.
bigger things
Okay.
that people. It's a big sticking point, and it could
Yeah.
be a big difference from a real estate perspective going from New Jersey and PA. And this was something that was unique to me. And there's a lot of scrutiny on the real estate industry as a whole right now, but there's very different business practices even from Pennsylvania, New Jersey. So even though you might be simply crossing a bridge, there's a lot of different steps in the process of buying and selling a house.
Hmm.
So it changes. And that's another reason why I haven't done a ton of business in New Jersey, is
Hmm.
because, well, to be frank, I don't like the way they do business. I
Okay.
like PA better. and I'm also more familiar with it. So when I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, it takes more time for me to get an understanding. And again,
It's
I
kind of
have,
like driving in
yeah,
New Jersey
exactly.
versus PA.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like I get hit with
exactly.
a jug handle, and I'm like,
Yep.
what the
Yep.
fuck? What's going on? But yeah, no, I get that. But again, to the point where you kind of want to be a trailblazer and you want to do something that might make you feel a little uncomfortable, or
Yep.
something that you're not the best at currently, and you're going to figure it out. I love the idea of, like, you bringing up that boat story. Like, I love the shore. I love, I have my family lives down there half the year. I love being down there. The businesses down there I resonate with. I love them, being, on the business insurance side of things. I aspire to insure as many of them as
Right.
possible. So for me, it was like that kind of like emotional tie connection where I was like, I want this to be an area that I insure.
Yeah, the other reason that drove me to that actually was even more personal. My
Mhm.
my aunt and uncle were buying a shore house, and I helped them through the
Yeah.
process. And I didn't get the credit for doing it, so I did all the work, and I didn't get paid for it. So I'm like,
But you got the
well, I
experience.
did get the
Yeah,
experience, and I've
yeah,
gone through it, but I wasn't getting the compensation for it. I'm like, if I can do that
yeah.
when I'm not licensed, and I wasn't stepping on toes, I pass it
No,
off to
sure,
the agent,
sure.
but I did a lot of the consulting more or less with their process. And I'm like, oh, I can see people moving. I mean, you talk about where I grew up. There's a lot of people that have shore houses, a lot of people that go down the Jersey Shore when it comes
Mhm,
to summertime.
mhm.
So it's just a natural market too. So I think it's an easy step in that path.
Now, will you stop with Jersey, or do you think you have
No, I think
horizons on the other states?
it's more of a like a, I don't want to call it a fallback plan. It's more of a secondary option. So it's
Got
like
it.
I'm not spending my time and effort to generate business, but when it comes and there's opportunities, I will jump on it. And I have
Mhm.
aspirations more long term. Again, it's a natural market. So you have people maybe buying their second home. Okay, you work with them buying or selling their current house here in Bucks County. Well, they might be buying a shore house down the line. I just represented a
So
client in
when we
doing that just this past year.
makes sense. So to clarify, when you said you were doing some like SEO, you're doing some marketing, or you're still targeting the PA area,
Yeah.
but if something comes in your door from Jersey, you're not going to say no.
Yes.
Got
Yeah,
it. Okay.
and my it's actually cool because on the PA side, I am the team leader. I'm an associate broker. I'm seeing it more from the brokerage level.
Mhm.
But then on the New Jersey side, I'm with a completely separate office, and they're also kind of trailblazers in the sense that they're a newer brokerage. They're young, they're youthful, but they're experienced and they're energetic. And I'm
Nice.
looking at it from the agent perspective as to what they're bringing to the table, what they're doing for their agents. So it's a good kind of give and take from our two businesses. They're not directly overlapping, but there's a lot of similarities, and we
Okay.
kind of benefit from each other. Me bringing my experience over to New Jersey to their brokerage, and then taking some of their thoughts and ideas and applying them to the
That's
team I'm
super
building.
interesting, because that also, like, it brings me to the I guess the agent to agent on the insurance side relationship. Like, we can collaborate with so many different agents, whether they're at a different agency, they write, X, Y, and Z, and we like to write certain other pieces of business. But what goes into kind of finding if you guys mesh well and you want to actually deal with another agency in a different state?
So how I went about picking my broker, like where I want to hang my license in New Jersey, I called around a couple locations actually at the time by the boat that I had, or by the dock that I had the boat at, and a lot of them were a little bit more old school.
Hmm.
And I number one, they didn't answer the phone. That was the first turnoff. When they don't answer the phone,
Yeah,
that doesn't resonate with me.
yeah,
I was talking on the phone before we walked in here.
yeah.
I'm talking on the phone constantly because that's what you have to do when you're in this business. I take phone calls even at times when I don't want to take phone calls, but
Yeah.
it's a necessity. So that was kind of fielding, and I was just kind of looking around, and I was trying to get someone that's relatable and that has that youth and vision too. So I just stumbled upon them. They're a little bit outside of that area. I was in Forked River. The office that I'm in is up in Asbury Park. So
Hmm.
again a youthful town. It's
Mhm.
it's it's an up and coming, and it's actually more than up and coming at this point in time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's a very desirable location. And from there, I kind of just resonated with the similar business practices. And the other thing that's cool about their brokerage is they have a lot of investment focus. So I had the investment experience on my end,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh wow, I fit really well, not only from the youth and the experience and the aspirations, but also I have all these same investment ties already
Sure.
kind of built into me. So it was just a pretty
That makes
seamless
sense. Yeah.
match.
And then after the initial phone call, like, how was there time involved of you spending time with them and getting to know their
Yeah,
practices?
we had and they were newer at the time. So that was 2 years ago, and they
Okay.
started like less than a year prior to me joining. So it was a very new brokerage. So it was a little bit of a risk in a sense of they weren't
It always
established.
is.
And I look at some of these, and I'm spoiled or not spoiled in the sense that I've never worked for like a franchise brokerage. I've never seen the Keller Williams, the
Mm-hmm.
Remax, the Berkshire Hathaway, whatever brokerage out there, Compass. I've never experienced that. I've only known the family
That's so
brokerage. And even
interesting
on
you
the
bring
New
that up.
Jersey side, it's the same thing. It's a boutique family-owned
Yeah.
brokerage that the broker and her partner are the head of the company. And that's where it started. So it
That
just
just clicked for
resonated a lot
me.
of
I don't
ways.
know why that just clicked for me. I was like I'm not thinking you're under the KW umbrella, Remax
Yeah.
umbrella. I mean, that's just so interesting.
Yeah.
Family run brokerage,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't. I feel like not even knowing the business as well as you do, you wouldn't jive with a franchise run brokerage. You needed it to be a family run brokerage.
Yeah, and I think I take that from my dad in the sense that he did it his way and he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I didn't want any of the extra red tape. Not that there's not benefits. I mean, I see them. I get calls from all these different brokerages pitching different
Oh yeah.
services, and I'm not gonna act like they're not great. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of great tools out there, but we can access them just the same. And again, going back to that stubbornness, I like to kind of prove it and do it. I like
Mm-hmm.
to speak with actions
With action and results.
more than words.
Yeah, that's
and
big.
that's just my philosophy.
Yeah, results driven's everything. I mean, I would agree with you. So how many times do you kind of check in with your dad and see how things are going with the agency? Like not on a personal level, hey dad, how you doing? But how are we doing as a business? What are our goals for this month, this year, et cetera?
So it certainly changed. When I started in the business, we were working 5 feet away from each other in an office every single day, 5 days a week. In Fishtown,
Mm-hmm.
and after COVID, that really shifted where it was a couple days a week, and now I rarely go to that office anymore, and it's more phone calls. And my dad lives right down the street from me, so I mean
Right.
it's accessible. But the way we kind of run things is I basically take a handle on all of the sales stuff. I do all of the marketing. I mean, I'm a one man show in the sense of the brokerage side of things. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have transaction coordinators. We don't have social media managers. We have me and my team.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of take the forefront of the sales side of things. And then we also have a property management arm of our portfolio, not only the stuff that my dad owns, but also the client properties that we manage, which is
Mm-hmm.
a lot in Bucks County. So he's the kind of head of that department, if you
Got it.
will.
Yep,
Call it
that makes
department.
sense. Yeah, that
So he
makes sense.
handles all the property management on both his own properties and then the stuff we manage for clients. And it's always a constant collaboration on stuff. Like I'm helping him out with sending documentation out. He's reviewing all of our sales stuff. So it's just like a lot of back and forth. And the one thing that I've actually been working on a little bit more is more of like a business structure, because when you're talking about growing a business, it's not just bringing in real estate commissions. It's putting a big vision of the marketing and the accounting and all the different pieces that go into a business. So it's more so about sustainability. And I've seen businesses that grow super fast and they grow almost too fast out of their shoes and they can't walk anymore.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we're growing organically and right.
Yeah.
So it's really been a focus of mine more on the business to continue to develop, again, not only my personal business, but also again for agents, because at the end of the day, when I look at a team of agents and people that I'm bringing on, I want them to be in my shoes. I want them to be in my seat so that they can grow and run their own business, because then they can show other people. We can
You're hitting
continue to
on
expand
yeah.
that footprint really indefinitely.
You're
And
hitting on so many good points.
and-
I mean, operationally, you brought up, kind of like the hallmark answer. Like you want to scale to the fact that operationally and organizationally flow, that if for some reason there's a gap in that process, there's somebody else who can then pick up the baton.
Yes.
Because you can have, an ace in every department, but what happens when that ace goes down?
Yeah,
Do you have a backup plan for that?
That's huge. And that's also something that's drastically different from other brokerages, in the sense that a lot of the big name brokerages, they're volume plays. And there's obviously really good agents at every level of the brokerage, new agents, experienced agents, people that are running teams, but they're definitely more volume based. I don't want volume. I want top level production. I talked to an agent down in South Carolina that was giving me a referral on a deal up in Willow Grove, and we were talking about her business structure, and she said, we are like just talking about training and teams and stuff like that. She said, we have 10 agents in our office, and they are just all producers. They are all just beasts in what they do. They don't take on new agents. They don't do training. They don't do this. They just go out and do their work. And to me, that's the kind of brokerage I'm looking for, in the sense that I want to have basically a uniform level of service across everybody in our brokerage, so that if I'm traveling, or if I'm doing this, or if I'm doing that, or I'm just too busy taking other clients out, I have someone else to step in my shoes, and they're not going to see a difference in the level of service. So
Yeah.
I want to have quality over quantity when it comes to the agents in our office. And
No,
I
that
think
makes perfect
we're
sense.
building that out right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then when you're selecting or procuring the talent, I mean, that's something that I would say this year, being completely honest, I had a lot of really good success finding some amazing talent. I love my team. I am looking really, really, I'm kind of like struggling to find that next couple pieces, right? And I feel like it's natural. It could be just this year, or I think we've came to a point in the agency where I'm so nervous of bringing somebody in to kind of like not jive with what we
Yeah.
got, right?
Yeah.
So like I think mentioning that you have, you were successfully able to scale the agency over the years. What do you look for, and then also how involved is your team in the process of seeing if that's going to be a fit after that maybe the hire has been made?
I think it's a constant reflection on what is going on, not only in the business. I mean, talk about the more macro. There's a lot of changes going on in the real estate brokerage business, real estate business across the board. Now, I think PA has done a really good job in their business practices, their forums, and it doesn't impact us as much as it might impact other places in the country. But that makes it easier to continue to kind of grow as the landscape is changing. So it's constantly reflecting on who we're trying to bring in. And again, it's like the agents I have in our office, they are all newer agents. So I can kind of show them the path, and they can be molded in a way that we really want them to have success. And they can kind of, again, take those shoes. I'm also looking for other agents that might have a little bit more experience, so that know the business, know the ins and outs. And that's how I started. I wasn't licensed at the time, but my dad's a broker. He's an investor. He's been in the business. We talked about it at family dinners. My uncle's a developer. My cousins are developers. My aunt's an interior designer. So there's all these different avenues that I have where I've had in my life that lend to real estate. So finding people that have like experiences there, or again, have just done it before.
Yeah.
So that's something that it's a challenge because I can tell from my personal experience, I haven't gone any other brokerage. I only know one thing.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
A lot of agents tend to bounce around, and they think the grass is always greener on the other side. And sometimes it's not. But going back to the earlier point is I want to kind of do the proof is in the pudding. I want to show you, and I'm going to demonstrate that I'm going to take market share, and I'm going to continue to do things the right way versus just preaching that. And I think that can attract a higher level of agent. And the other thing is across the industry, it's not an easy business. It looks glamorous. It looks great when it comes to selling big properties and big deals. And they are great. Like, don't get me wrong, but they don't see all the conversations, or like we were joking before we got on, drop calls that just infuriate you, and other things that go into the day to day, and all the conversations that are sometimes painful. Talk about this market where it's really competitive and difficult for buyers. I got to make phone calls and say, well, we didn't get this deal. That's the worst part of my job.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could get a deal for every single buyer, every offer we put out. But with the competition, especially in Lower Bucks County, like, that's not realistic. The best agents, they're going to lose deals. So that's like more of an emotional tie that sucks. And you might go through 2, 3, 4. I did one that was 22 different deals we lost before we got one. And it's crushing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I might not feel the pain the same way, but I feel it because my blood, sweat, and tears and time went into that just the same.
I think your client
where I
will be
have
able
that
to
passion for
hear
what they're
that.
doing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it in your voice how empathetic and kind of like, emotional you are over it. I mean, I think if you set the stage and you explain this to your client from the beginning, then they kind of understand there are so many things outside of your control,
Yes.
right? That
Very
like
much so.
you could literally do, an A+ job, and making sure that the client or the prospect knows what might go wrong, and it's not because of my doing that. That always, in my opinion, kind of helps set the stage. Also, not to mention, I mean, yes, social media, your stuff, I bring it up all the time. It sells. Yeah. It's basically like HGTV, just like 20 years ago. And it's beautiful the way that you guys do things. And there's nothing better than seeing a happy couple or something in front of their new forever home or something like that. That sells. Then behind the scenes, it's like you and your wife and your kids and your forever home getting calls on Saturday and Sunday and Monday. And it's like, well, when does this end?
Yeah.
But you brought up the point. You were like, listen, like when I was looking for a company to hang my license on, I went to the one that picked up the phone. Yeah. And then you're like, well, I always pick up the phone.
Yes.
And like that's kind of a behind the scenes that not a lot of people see.
Yeah, and the tough part about the struggles in the business, again, there are a lot of struggles, and there's not there's a ton of turnover in the business. People get licensed and they're out of the business in a year or two
Yeah.
because it's hard. It is hard because at the end of the day, whether you're working with a team, you're working on your own, whatever you're doing, you're working for yourself. You're a small business owner
Yes.
when you become a real estate agent.
Absolutely.
You are a 1099 subcontractor, regardless of the structure, and that's hard. Where you have to wear all these different hats from a marketing perspective, from an accounting perspective, from a client service, customer relations perspective. You have to do it all, whether you like it or not. And some people grow and then they have pieces they pull in to handle some of those things, but at the beginning there's no way to avoid that. And that's the turnover. If you look at statistics, like I've been seeing this circulating early in the year, last year across the country there was I think it was 57% of real estate agents did not sell a single house, which is telling you that only 43% of the market is doing business. And when you take it down a little bit further, you see that there's a small number of people that have a larger market share. And with the changes in the industry, it's actually shifted even more dramatically in that direction. So when you talk about like clients and people looking for who to list their home with or who to buy with, I want to be that person that is top of the game, because people sometimes don't know the service that they're missing out on when they go sell with somebody else, because they're missing. I'll give you an example from this listing I have right now. We have, I think it's over 40 showings on a property in 3 days, which is a lot in general. This is $1 million price point. There are not that many buyers looking, but we did an exceptional job marketing the property, and I'm going to tip the cap to the sellers. It's an amazing product. It's easy to sell an amazing product because this house is just absolutely phenomenal. But we did all these things. And as I'm going through some of the marketing days that we're there taking photos and videos and stuff, the seller's like, damn, Matt, I didn't know you were doing all this and you had this whole production and all this stuff. And I said, yeah, I'll show you what I can do. And again, talking about the proof is in the pudding, I will demonstrate by giving me the opportunity to show what I've done. And then I have the numbers to back it up to say, okay, look at all these people. You look at our Google reviews, you look at all the different information about us to support what we're doing. And yeah, I might be younger, but I've been in the business 10 years and I'm producing like people that have been in the business 40. Yeah. And I want to take that to another level too. It's not just we're happy here.
And you're hungry, man.
Yeah.
You're hungry, and you're doing all this stuff. I know it.
I enjoy it
because you have a passion for it. That's probably the best compliment. I mean, if I were to get that compliment, like, hey, wow, Jay, I didn't think you would be doing it like this, I'd be like, hell yeah, like, let's go. That's awesome. So what
I know you enjoy yourself too.
I enjoy the process, man. I enjoy seeing the wins. I enjoy watching the team win. Like, I really, really love watching the team win.
I can speak to this just in many, many different conversations. You care about the people you do business with, and not only them personally, but their businesses.
Oh yeah.
And talking about being that entrepreneur and being the small business owner, like I know what that's like. So having that support and that care gets you comfortable. And especially when you're talking about an insurance perspective, even more so, to make sure that you can run your business effectively and not have concerns or mitigate those concerns at least.
There's a few old school stories of before I got into the insurance game that I bring up during my first entrepreneurial route that just hit home with any business owner, because I was in the dark. I wasn't the insurance guy. I was the business owner.
Yep.
And that sells that, but it doesn't, it's not that it's fake selling. It's just, this sells because this is how I got my heart ripped out and cut my teeth.
Yeah.
And so I know what it's like. So when I come to you and now I have that past experience plus the insurance background and this wonderful team behind me, we're going to win for you. What makes a home, like, other than those additions and things, like, what makes a home so good to sell? What makes it good and what makes it bad, I guess?
I think
carpet in the bathroom. That's definitely bad.
I think the coolest part is really the emotional piece of it, right? Okay. You can see, for everybody buying a house, at the time at least, it's going to be the biggest investment they make. Mm-hmm. Whether you look at it as from an investment perspective or just an outright purchase, it's the biggest purchase they're going to make in their life. Whether it's your first home, your second home, your third home, sometimes you might go downward, but it's still a huge commitment. You're talking about, if you get financing, it's in theory a 30-year commitment. So seeing the different phases of people in life, whether it is buying that first home, like, that's some of my most gratifying deals, is seeing that first time home buyer just so elated and excited about what they're getting into and all the benefits of being a homeowner. I mean, there's a lot of headaches, but there's also so many benefits. So it's just, to see the excitement and to be there and support that excitement. And I try to make it as exciting as possible because it's a big deal. I mean, when you're buying your first house or any house for that matter, it's a big deal, whether it's the first, second, third, or 25th. So that's really a big thing for me is seeing the emotional side of things. Forget about the house. The houses are going to more or less sell themselves, whether it be a good market or a bad market, because you can always change the components of the house. It's the location, the community, and the businesses, and all the things that really surround a house that make it a home. And of course, there's cosmetic things that you can make to make one home feel better than the other, and have, again, personal ties to it. But that stuff is all kind of just like coverings. It's not really.
It's all the aesthetics.
It's not the meat and potatoes.
I'm glad your answer hit home. I mean, that's what it is. It's not about, does it have a pool?
Yeah.
Does it have, a private balcony here or there? Does it have this, a playroom for the kids? I mean, yes, it like certain things, certain boxes have to be checked so that people can see themselves in the home. But I think having that story or painting that picture around what they're about to get into, or also what they're about to sell. Yeah. Right. There has to be an emotional tie to selling a home that was maybe new construction. Like the home that I grew up in Langhorne, I never actually went over this, but I'll share it because it's real estate driven. They built my home in Langhorne up the street from Neshaminy in 1991, November 15th, 1991. I think they moved in. I was, I wasn't even born yet. And my parents sold it around 2016. That was the only home I ever lived in my entire life. Right. And it's funny because like there were paintings on the wall, there are paintings in the basement with my sister and I did that when we sold it, like we didn't do anything to it. And I knew the people that were moving in. So around the holidays, me and my sister actually stopped in. They invited us in and it was still there. I thought that was like That's so awesome. Weird, but like That's also awesome. Walking through the old home invigorated so many memories and things like that. So I think like the process of selling a home is just as, if not more, emotional than buying a home.
I can agree with that 100%. And that's kind of what we do is we look at, there's always a motivation, whether you're buying or selling, and look at the motivations. And when we have on the buy side, a buyer consultation and go through, why do you want to buy a house? And on the sell side, it's the same thing. Why do you want to sell our house? And we have dealt with all different situations from sellers. I mean, I just did a couple where they're downsizing and they're selling the house. These two owners, off the top of my head, the most recent deals, they've lived in that house from the time it was built. To your point, one was 1987, the other one's 1988. So almost 30 years in two different houses, or no, almost 40 years in two different houses. So having raised family there, having had negative emotions through a house, it weighs on the heartstrings. Yeah. And you can't forget about that. That has to be the focus. Sure, everyone's chasing dollars and everybody's chasing those things, but if you do the right by people, at the end of the day, the dollars come. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care what you do. If you do right by people and pay it forward and do it the right way, you're going to have a lot of business. And
funny question for you. Yeah. Because this just popped in my head. I don't want to miss it. Have you ever sold a haunted house? Have you ever sold a house that the walls, because you brought up negative energy and I was just like, all right, let's go paranormal.
I have not, but I have a good story about that.
When
my parents were looking for their first house, my uncle is a little bit of a jokester, and they went to this old farmhouse, and I grew up, or when I was born in a farmhouse in Willow Grove for 2 years. I lived there. So they were looking for this kind of farmhouse style. And he went in somehow early on the showing and put a tape recorder in the basement of like some ghoul music, like ghost music. And it scared the living daylights out of my mom, and my aunt was there too. That's the closest thing I have to a haunted house story. So they didn't buy that house, needless to say. Yeah. It scared them away, but I've never actually.
But you've never had to. Do you have to disclose?
It's a great question.
See, I knew that there was a great question in there somewhere.
So it's similar to if someone passes away in a house, right? Okay. You don't have to broadcast that as a seller. But if you have information, you have to disclose. So on the haunted thing, if you know your house is haunted, you better relay that information. Yeah. And on the death thing, if someone asks you if someone died in the house, you have to answer that question honestly. Got it. So there's some things that require upfront disclosure, and then there's some things that require disclosure if asked. But this is kind of a general rule of thumb for all sellers. Seller disclosure law is one of the biggest reasons for lawsuits. So when you're talking about selling a property, I don't care what agent you use, you sell it by yourself, you got to be honest,
Yeah.
because that creates a problem for not only you as a seller, the buyer, the buyer's agent, the seller's agent, the attorney involved, if there's one, title. I mean, it just can drag
Sure.
everybody through the mud, and
Sure.
it's not worth it. If you have a problem, especially in this market, it's solvable, it's passable.
Yeah.
So you want to be transparent about
Honesty,
what's going
definitely
on.
the best policy.
Yes.
And then I think
Yes.
on the listing too. I mean, it's kind of like almost looking when you're hiring somebody, a resume or a job jumper, like why did this house sell for, 5 times in the past 7 years?
Yes.
Like there's something going on here.
Yeah. And we, to that point, like sometimes face value is an indicator. Why is a property sit on the market? Because it was overpriced. Sometimes there's some weird situation. Maybe it was the seller being difficult. Maybe it was a house being haunted.
Yeah.
We like to take the initiative to figure that out first before we make decisions, because
Sure.
people got spoiled after COVID and the way the market's been, at least in Bucks County. And I think even anywhere across the country for the most part, is properties used to sit on the market for 3 months, and people would then look at them and say, hey, why is this property selling?
Yeah.
Now people are looking at it. It's like, it's been on the market for 5 days. What's wrong with it?
What's going on?
5 days from
Yeah.
90 days. I mean, that's a monumental shift.
Yeah.
And buyers look at it and they're like, I don't even want to take an effort. I have a really cool story from a client that bought a property in Philadelphia. When you see a property, sometimes listed, it's listed as coming soon. And sometimes you post a photo there and they only have one picture. So photos normally are going to come after the fact.
Sure.
So this property was coming soon. They had one photo. It went to active and it still had one photo. And they're like, wow, this is a pretty good price. Maybe we should go check it out. Having no idea what the inside of the house looks like, just having specs. And the house was great, right? The agent didn't do a great job marketing the
I was
house.
going to say, yeah.
And we actually got a good deal on the house because that buyer was willing to take the shot to go visit the house and see. Now, a lot of times it works the other way.
I was going to say, yeah.
where
I wouldn't have been me.
It's not great,
Yeah.
but by just taking that shot, they made out and they got a really good house. So we don't like to do that kind of marketing when we're listing properties.
You don't want to leave
we
any
don't
stone
blast,
unturned.
We don't blast it out until it's ready to go.
Yeah.
But there's situations that happen across the industry, sometimes things that don't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that because there's so many, talk about the emotional side of things. There's so many outside factors that can influence a decision to buy or sell real estate, whether it be personal matters, whether it be macroeconomic factors or whatever the case may be. There are so many. And it is so personal. So like another deal that resonates in my head when talking about that is a client of mine. This is the heat of the market. It was super competitive and we had gone out and I knew what they wanted. They were looking for that dream home, that forever home. And we found this house that was coming up. It was in Yardley. And we looked at the house and it was a great house from photos. And we called the agent on the listing side and she informed me that the seller just had back surgery and he's an older guy and he just can't really get back in that house. So they needed to sell quickly. So that he gave me that outside factor and there was a sense of urgency. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we put the offer together before we even saw the house because we knew this was a great house. We knew it was the right house. And we had the first showing scheduled on the entire calendar, 9:00 in the morning. I think it was a Thursday. And I had the offer ready to go. We finished showing the house and it was checked all the boxes like we thought it did. We submitted the offer at 9:45. We submitted a really strong offer to get that seller to make a decision because again, this is the heat of the market.
You had that inside info.
You had 20 offers.
And you had that inside info.
We had that conversation. Yeah. And what happened was we got the house. I think it was $30,000, $35,000 over asking price, which in a nutshell, oh, wow, you're paying over asking price. Is that a great deal? Maybe not. But you look at that house and I can say this with the utmost confidence. If that house had gone to market through the weekend, it would have sold for $50,000 or $60,000 higher than what we got it for.
I believe that.
And that same house today, it was a $700,000 price point. We got it, I think, for $760,000. That house today is selling for over $1 million.
I believe it.
And it's only a couple years ago.
I believe it.
So having that call
Yardley
makes a difference in just having the communication to make sure that you're looking out for your clients.
But also
they just had a little baby. They're filling out that family home. And
that's awesome.
Again, it's gratifying to see when people are happy.
But also moving on that inside trader information, like being able to take that information and then actually roll with it and make something happen. Because if the deal wasn't in place, who knows, it would have went to market, probably would have went for more. All right. So one last question for you before we wrap up. The homes that they're building nowadays, I live in a new construction home in Bensalem. You're familiar with the neighborhood. Maybe you've done some listings there. I'm not sure, but they're a stacked townhome model. Lennar's the builder. I like to know from a real estate perspective, and it's okay if you don't have an honest answer or just even an accurate, because it's more of a contracting question. Are they building homes the same way quality wise as they used to?
Absolutely not.
No, I didn't think so.
There's no way to sugarcoat that.
Okay,
The
good.
answer is no. It's just a different construction style. A lot of talk about that development in particular.
Mhm.
It's a tract builder, and it's more prefab style. So they're building the structure of the house really off site, and it's like playing puzzle
Lego
pieces. They're
blocks.
putting
Yeah.
puzzle pieces together. Now some people are like, oh, I don't want to buy that house. It's built like sticks. What are you going to buy? They don't make houses the way they used to. So it's not like you can be really selective with it and pick these houses, but it's a different style. And sometimes it's more economic, and sometimes it's better engineering because we learned over the years. But if you talk about they don't put huge wood beams like they used to
Mhm.
back in 1900s. I just remember one of the first houses I ever sold. You could go in the basement and see the joists they use, and
Yeah.
there was bark on
Yeah.
the wood.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, there were a couple up in the Poconos. I've seen a few homes inside that were made with nails, Amish houses. But I think the pro is it's extremely energy efficient.
Yes.
There are perks, right? So, but I just wanted to answer that question just from a real estate perspective, because a lot of people, who probably might be buying that, maybe they're downsizing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they had that forever home, and now they're going to more of a stacked townhome model or smaller. They're just not getting the materials that they're used to.
Right. And another thing about new construction as a whole, because this is a really important point, twofold. Number one, it's in this market where it's so competitive, it's a little bit of an easier avenue for someone to get into buying a house. Because
That's true.
if you look at anywhere, it's hard to buy a house. Anywhere around here, at least, it's hard to buy a house. I don't care how much money you have, it's
Mhm.
still difficult. So that eliminates some level of competition. The other thing I want to make clear about new construction is people buy new construction by going straight to the builder, right? When you go straight to the builder, you are going and talking to someone representing the other side of the table. So
Mhm.
people sometimes are reluctant to call an agent and say, hey, Matt, can you take me to this new construction listing? And I urge them to pause on that thought and call me up and say,
Yes.
okay, I can look out for you. I can be an advocate for you because now I represent your interests. And the
Yes.
other side of the table is looking to line their pockets into the day. Sure,
I'm-
some builders are doing things the right way and doing things well, but they are still at the end of the day representing that seller. So it's important for people to want to get that conversation and
I'm
get
glad you brought that up.
representation because,
Yeah.
like I said a couple different times, we look at our clients like family. So
Mhm.
if you were buying a house, I want to make sure that you're protected when it comes to buying that house. You're
Oh.
not pissed off a year later and saying, "Oh, Matt, why'd you let me buy this piece of crap house?" And we talk through some of the things, like the fact that it's new construction and some of the perks that come with it, and the downsides. And there's a lot of give and take.
I'm
on
glad
any
you
given
brought
house.
that up, because and then it's such an overwhelming process. I was fortunate enough to have somebody in the family who I dealt with
Yep.
who coached me along, but I could see how easily you can get consumed by the whole process. Even the closing table was at my kitchen table, and everyone was there, and I was still trying to figure out what was going on. But the agent did help a lot, and I couldn't imagine going through that without one. What I will say is, and this is kind of the last, I guess, point I wanted to bring up personally, is with this new construction home, a lot of things are told to the home buyer, and depending on which phase they bought in, they're all kind of told a different story. So I got there's 5 phases in my neighborhood, and everyone got told that the community was going to be something, and it's all 5 different things.
Yep.
So I would say take Matt's advice on that. That's great. I think an agent can really do their research and also kind of just protect you throughout that process. And I guess it's similar on the insurance side, making sure you have, an independent broker. I always kind of flex that as much as I can. It's kind of, I guess, similar to that franchise real estate model versus the home family run business, but the independent brokerage can basically be unbiased and shop you against everything that is available.
Yeah.
And as long as you
That's
have a good one,
powerful.
they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, this is going to conclude us, my friend. This was a great episode. We touched on so much stuff. I hope you enjoy being on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Joe, we're out of here. Thanks, man.